So guys, I came back with this one, this installment, because I was thinking about a company that I had on my mind for a while. So I said, let me come back with the next installment. So this one is all about basically a company that was huge. I mean, it still is huge, but in my eyes, it's not as big as it used to be. That company is Sega. But the real question I want everybody to think about actually is, do you miss Sega being a first-party company instead of a third-party company? As one of my friends put it, Sega's not on the front line anymore. It means being one of those big leagues, like Nintendo, which was once its biggest rival, and Microsoft and Sony. And basically, in terms, it doesn't have a console anymore. I mean, the last console it had was the Dreamcast, which I still have to this day and still play. But basically, we all know Sega. Sega, company that brought us things like Sonic, Golden Axe, hence Streets of Rage, or in Japan, Bare Knuckle as it's called. I can go on and on about the list of games it's brought out. But in terms, I mean, you do gotta miss that sometimes, Sega's not on the front line anymore, bringing out the games. It's kind of hard for me sometimes to see Sega bringing out games for, the other systems like Microsoft and Sony, and even hence its biggest rival at the time, like I said, back in the 90s, Nintendo. I mean, you see in Sonic on Nintendo and things like that. It's cool and all in some way, but I mean, don't you miss it sometimes? Don't you? You gotta really sit back and think, like, wow, I can't believe Sega just kind of gave up on the console. I mean, I saw no problem with the Dreamcast. I mean, sometimes I think maybe it was ahead of its time at the time. You know what I'm saying? It was ahead of its time, but you gotta admit it. You gotta miss the fact that it's not a first-party company anymore. It's still throwing out games. Don't no question about it. I mean, the latest game so far is Mad World, and that game, I mean, it is beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful game. The concept is great. I mean, and hence that it came out for the Wii. Now, we already pronounced that it wasn't going to be making any kind of mature games like that, and this game is by far the maturest of them all. And I've seen the other games, list of games that Sega has in store for the other games, but it does bring up a question like, man, I miss it, I miss seeing them with their own system, their own games, their own system with their own games on it. I mean, it's sometimes I think they did it for good business. I'm not really gonna get into politics and everything about why they did it, but it does bring up that question, like, damn, man. It's like they just almost like my friend said, they gave up. They didn't go out without a fight. But it's hard sometimes, it's hard. But like my friend once, a friend said to me, he's like, yo, they still making money, man. So that's all that matters. I mean, you don't see Capcom coming out with their own system. You don't see other third-party companies coming out with their systems. But in some ways, he said Sega did the right thing. I mean, they still putting out games, though, some of the games I gotta question, hence, especially the Sonic franchise. I mean, some some of the games are sound, but was on paper sound, good ideas on paper, but kind of crappy, kind of bullshit when it came to putting it out there in the game system. And I'm not gonna say it's a it's bad, because hence, I don't make games, and as far as I'm concerned, it takes a lot of will know to make these games. A lot of effort, a lot of money to put these games out. And as far as I'm concerned, Sonic is still running high, but some of the games, you kind of question, like, this isn't the old Sonic that we grew. If you're like me, who grew up with the Genesis and stuff like that, you gotta admit sometimes it's not the same. It's not the same as say like the old Sonic games where it was fast paced. Even Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast had its moment, had its mixture of new meets old school. And I'm a big fan of the old school. But Sega, they're still doing their thing, you know what I'm saying? But that's the question I want everybody to think about. Do you miss Sega being a first-party company instead of now being a third-party company? I mean, like I said, I was a fan of Sega for years. Having its from the Sega Master System to the Genesis to the Saturn to the Dreamcast. I've had almost everything Sega had, except for things like the Nomad and Sega CD. But it does bring up a question, like, do you miss it? Do you miss it? Do you think it was right for them to go third party, or should they stayed first party and maybe kept it going? But that's what I wanted everybody out there to think. So other than that, guys, once again, this is Mount Vernon Kid, just keeping it real, and you guys stay tuned.